And thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jennifer Sanders. Well, 3 Texas Democrats who broke quorum to go to the nation's capital are now in isolation after contracting COVID-19. All 3 lawmakers were fully vaccinated. Joining me in the studio tonight is KXAN's Tahira Rahman. So you've really been digging into this, talking to lawmakers all day. What have you found?
That's right, Jennifer. Now, those 3 lawmakers who tested positive for COVID-19 were part of that group that left Texas and headed to Washington, D.C., all in an effort to stop GOP-led elections overhaul bills. Now, the House Democratic Caucus says it has contacted and tested other members and staff, but these lawmakers have been busy meeting others at the Capitol.
My first reaction was concern.
State Representative James Tallarico says he and the rest of his Democratic delegation in D.C. are now being tested for COVID-19 daily.
Thankfully, my 3 colleagues who have tested positive don't feel any symptoms and they feel fine, which is probably a result of being fully vaccinated.
He says those 3 who've tested positive have been removed from the group.
They are isolated in their hotel room with no one else in there with them.
State Representative Donna Howard has also tested negative, but after almost a week, the roughly 60 members of the caucus have met with several leaders. Congressman Lloyd Doggett welcomed them at the steps of the U.S. Capitol and met with others individually.
I myself know I met with 7 different senators as well as the vice president.
The White House confirms 2 of those who tested positive for COVID-19 were in Tuesday's indoor meeting with Vice President Harris, but they say she and her staff were not, quote, at risk of exposure because they were not in close contact.
What gatherings are upcoming and whether we might need to have fewer in attendance.
Howard says the group may start limiting meetings as they monitor spread and will be masking up more, even though that's not a CDC requirement for vaccinated people. Dems say they don't plan on returning to Texas until the end of special session.
It's up to us to keep ourselves safe, to keep others safe, so that we can continue this fight for voting rights.
Now, Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan released a statement today extending his prayers for the health and safety of the Texas Democrats who tested positive for COVID-19. He also said his staff has reached out to the Texas Department of State Health Services for any additional guidance on protocols for people exposed to COVID-19 after vaccination. And Jen, right now, the CDC says if you are fully immunized, unless you have symptoms, you don't have to stay away from other people or even get tested unless you do have those symptoms. And you should monitor for those for 14 days after exposure.
All right, Tahira, thanks so much. We'll know you'll continue to follow this story for us right here. So which Texas Democrats are in D.C. and which ones stayed behind? Right now on KXAN.com, we have a running list of who we know is in Texas and who left for Washington. Just click on this story on the front page.